Hello, everyone. Welcome in. It is SEC Football Game Day, a special Saturday edition of the SEC Morning Report that we do each and every week during the college football season. And it is week 9 as we are ready to dive into some big matchups this weekend. You got Georgia, Florida, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Then you have Tennessee taking on Kentucky, two teams looking to bounce back after their most recent performances. Mississippi State goes on the road to Auburn. You have South Carolina traveling to Texas A&M, and the Vanderbilt Commodores going to Ole Miss. There's so much to cover here, guys, and we cover a lot on this network. Remember, if you think that this SEC crazed audience is someone you might want to market your business to, hit up Caroline.Smith at Southeastern 14 if you're interested with partnering with us. And also you can check out CHOMPS, as always, a healthy, a nutritious, a delicious snack, and you can get 15% off with the discount in the description below. Guys, have to go ahead and start talking here about the Georgia Bulldogs taking on the Florida Gators. This is a rivalry that is right up there with any in college football when both the teams are good. Now, the thing about it is that hasn't been always the case. There's not been a ton of upsets in this deal. There's been a lot of big spreads here as of late, one side or the other, things of that nature. And Georgia really has dominated for a little while after Florida had a long run for a while as well. So there are a lot of interesting things to dive into, but let's go ahead and throw the spread up there. 14.5 over under 45.5. Some places you've seen that spread get all the way down to a flat 14 there. I'm looking at the Gators run defense in this one. It's kind of been a little bit crazy up and down a little bit of a roller coaster there, because the Gators played early on in the year, played some decent run defense against Utah. I mean, they, of course, Utah was without Cam Rising. They had their backup quarterback in. We're trying to establish the run early in the year. Florida, didn't really let them run the ball a ton in that game. Florida really only gave up one huge play in that game, a big play, 70-yarder on the first pass on the first play of the game. But other than that, Florida's defense played pretty solidly in that game, well enough. It was kind of self-inflicted stuff that hurt them against that Utah team. And then a Tennessee team a little bit later, a few weeks later, that loves to run the football. They held them to right at 100 yards rushing. So really, really good there. But then go on the road to Kentucky later in the year and get over 300 yards rushing hung on them. Ray Davis had over 280 on the day himself. And they were a mess when it came to fitting gaps, whether it was against the duo dive run, whether it was against zone run, whether it was against gap scheme. Particularly in the gap scheme, the play side linebacker always kept going underneath the puller on the backside, whether it was a guard or a tackle wrapping around, trying to get that play side linebacker. Scooby Williams, Shamar James haven't fit it well against Kentucky. They didn't fit the run well against South Carolina. South Carolina rushed for 152 yards on the day. That's including the sack yardage being taken out. They had a few sacks on the day against South Carolina, and those yards come off the rushing total. Even with that, South Carolina still mustered 152 yards. And guys, the way that South Carolina's offensive line is patched together at this point in the year, and the way how bad they were dinged up during that Florida game, with only one starting offensive lineman really from the beginning of the year in that game, and that's like giving up 250, 300 to any other team. So I think you've got to be a little bit leery of that if you are a Florida fan in this one, about the run defense. And then on the Georgia side, you got to look and say, okay, now it's time. Carson Beck, this is what you've been brought to Georgia for. This is what you waited your turn, waited for your opportunity for. He's played well this year, but now he's got to do it without maybe the best player in college football, and Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers just so athletic, so good after the catch, and provided so much to that team. Whether he was getting the ball or not, people had to be aware of him and plan accordingly on defense. Now, you can say that, hey, now Austin Armstrong has to figure out, okay, now what is this game plan going to look like for Georgia without Brock Bowers? Because we haven't seen it. Absolutely. But Georgia has to have guys step up around Carson Beck. I'm not worried whatsoever about how Carson Beck is going to play, how he's going to be. He's a very even-keeled guy. But you have to have guys that are going to be able to step up and make plays around him, and Brock Bowers consistently did that. Ladd McConkey's back healthy. He should be able to do that. Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint has been around forever. He's a guy that they'll look to for more production, most likely. Dominic Lovett is a guy they brought in from Missouri that had almost 900 yards receiving last year, led Missouri in receiving. And also they brought in Ra Thomas from Mississippi State that led them in receiving. So anytime that you have two receivers that led other SEC teams in receiving a year ago, welcome to the era of the portal, right? On your roster, that has to be something that you say, hey, these guys they've proven it. They've been there. They've done that. Now it's time for them to step up in the Georgia uniform. That has to be what Mike Bobo, Kirby Smart, and company are thinking. Now, we mentioned the run game that Florida has had trouble stopping the run. I think the reason I think that could be important is because Georgia is as healthy as it's been at the running back position all year long. And got Daijun Edwards ready to go, of course. Kendall Milton is back after, sitting out the second half of that Vanderbilt game out of precaution, and then having a whole bye week to get going and just making sure his MCL issue he was dealing with is cleared up, good to go. Of course, Andrew Paul's been working his way back from ACL injury, so have to think the bye week probably did a lot for his confidence, getting some work in, things like that. They've got Cash Jones and then big Roderick Robinson, a freshman out of San Diego, California. A lot of people are going to tell you that he is, maybe not going to play in this game, stuff like that. And that if he does, it's a coach's decision. But I did get confirmation he health-wise is ready to go. And he's if his number is called, then I expect him to be able to go out and produce in this game. So for the first time all year, Georgia has 5 running backs available and of some different size and some different traits there for this game against Florida. Now, defensively for each of these teams, okay, they're very, very good on third down in terms of getting the other team off the field. Florida at 29% is third in the SEC. Georgia at one of the best in the entire country and definitely the best in the SEC, 23 point, just a little bit over 23%, guys, that they hold other teams to. Graham Mertz has a high completion rate on third down, the highest in the SEC at 71%. However, Florida is not converting third downs at a very high rate, only 33% of the time, and not a great rate there offensively. I'll go ahead and put some of these numbers up here. You see Florida, like I said, 33.33%. That's 12th in the SEC on third down conversions, Georgia being the first, holding them there. Florida does allow a lot of sacks, 19. That's 10th in the SEC. Georgia does not get a lot of sacks because Georgia does not bring a lot of pressure, okay? And we're going to see if Georgia decides to bring a little bit more pressure to heat up Graham Mertz a little bit. Kind of a risk reward situation there because Graham Mertz has proven to be better than he ever was at Wisconsin. And he's experienced. He's seen all these kind of blitzes and things like that before. So you have to question, okay, if we bring somebody here, if we do this here, is he going to do this there? That's the kind of question you have to do if you're a defensive coordinator and you're the minds on Georgia. So if Georgia decides to bring pressure, Graham Mertz would then have a chance to replace that pressure, and we'll see what the continuity on that passing game looks like. They still have Caleb Douglas out, who's been out for a little while. They should have Eugene or Trey Wilson, whichever one Billy Napier refers to him as Trey. They should have him available. They're missing a couple tight ends. Odom and Zippier going to be out. Of course, Zippier's out for the year. Odom's dealing with a concussion. So they're without a couple tight ends as well is Florida. And then when you're talking about the biggest injury news on the day for Florida is I think that Kinsley Aguakon is supposed to be ready to go. That is huge for them, and their running attack on offense has been much better when he has been in there. Florida has not ran the ball well away from the swamp. When they've been on away games, Utah, Kentucky, South Carolina, they've had under 100 yards rushing in each one of those games. 31 total, or 13 total, against Utah, in the 60s against Kentucky, and 73 total against South Carolina. Now, some of those are counting against Florida, the sacks that were included in that game. I don't know what the reasoning for that would be, why you'd be so good at running the football at home and not on the road. They have, Etienne and Montrell Johnson, who are weapons. They're great running backs that Florida has. Billy Napier does a really good job of getting you moving side to side, pre-snap motion, formationally, things like that. So Georgia's going to have to be disciplined there in their gap integrity, trying not to overrun things, stuff like that. The big injury news on Georgia's side, 2 offensive linemen should be available and ready to go. We'll see how much, or if they'll be limited at all, will be Amarius Mims and then also Xavier Truss, both guys that have really been big factors here for the last couple of years for Georgia. Then I said Kendall Milton, of course, should be ready to go. Announced on Twitter last night that Darius Smith, an outside linebacker for Georgia that's been away from the team, he announced on his Instagram page. This is not me confirming anything. This is him announcing on his Instagram page that he was back with the Georgia Bulldogs. He won't be available for this game, but that is big news for Georgia going forward. There was undisclosed issue there, so we'll see what that undisclosed issue turns out to be, but he is back with Georgia, it would appear. Now, I think the key to this game, guys, with Georgia and Florida, when it all is said and done, I think what you're going to have to look at here is that running game for Georgia. Can it provide balance for this offense? At times, it's been pass heavy a little bit, and I think that Florida's biggest chance is being able to try to hit some explosive plays, even though they haven't been the greatest. They're 5th in the SEC, the 33 explosive plays. Georgia is 2nd up there in the SEC, in the high 40s in explosive plays in terms of offensively producing those explosive plays. Georgia is 1st in the SEC in preventing explosive plays. They've only given up 15, but I think trying to do things in the aerial attack, maybe off of play action and stuff like that, is Florida's best chance to really, stay around in this game and hope that Georgia has a couple busts on the back end, maybe produce some turnovers, but defensively. But Florida has been very poor at getting takeaways. Only 4 takeaways on the year, which is not very good at all. 2 fumble recoveries, 2 interceptions. Georgia leads the SEC with 9 interceptions, but doesn't have a fumble recovery on the year. But the key to this one for Florida, like I said, I think their best chance is being able to try to make it a track meet if possible, score as many points as they can, and hope that they get enough key stops and Carson Beck will turn the ball over, or one of those running backs will turn the ball over, or something along those lines. So the key to this one is going to be simply, okay, which offensive line is able to establish movement up front against the opposing defense, and who converts better on 3rd down and in the red zone, because Georgia has struggled offensively and defensively at times with their touchdown conversion rate in the red zone. I think Georgia needs to see that pick up a little bit more, but I do think Georgia's the more talented team. I think Georgia, if they play clean, can win this one. The line is 14.5. I think Georgia could win this one anywhere from 14 to 17 points. But I think, of course, that's all incumbent of them playing clean in this game. Talk about the coaching narratives in this game. Kirby Smart now has all the motivation in the world for his team, with people out there, picking against Georgia. ESPN saying they have a 15% chance of remaining undefeated, things of all this nature with Brock Bowers out. That the attitude is, well, nobody believes in you guys without Brock, things like that. So basically a early, you hate to see anybody injured, and certainly they don't want to face life without Brock Bowers, but psychologically it's a kind of a Christmas present wrap to Kirby to give to his team and to kind of motivate them to find that extra gear and try to individually, but then also collectively raise their game and raise their internal motivation a little bit there for these Georgia Bulldogs who are back-to-back national champions. Then Billy Napier, he's really trying to just kickstart this rebuild here in Florida. If this would be rocket fuel for it if he could end up beating Georgia in this game. So that's what it kind of means to both of these head coaches going into this game. Now let's move on to Tennessee and Kentucky. Guys, this was 3.5. It's grown to four now in some places. At Kentucky, night game, Kroger Field. So that has been a big advantage for Kentucky for a while now. But guys, they had a just downfall, a tragic, just collapse against Missouri, up 14-0, all the momentum in the world. And then a fake punt really brings it all tumbling down. And Kentucky ends up going down to Missouri at home 2 weeks ago. Now they've had a bye week, 2 weeks to prepare for Tennessee, 2 weeks to try to flush that. Kenneth Horsey, who knows if he's going to be available or not, I doubt it, but he is a leader still for that team, and talked about a players-only meeting, things of that nature. And Kentucky didn't give a whole lot of details, just talking about a patience and overcoming adversity and things of that nature. I think it was kind of a calming time for Kentucky to have that bye week and get things straightened out on their end. They also got some people healthy with Trevin Wallace, and Jagger Burton should be Trevin Wallace at linebacker, of course, and Jagger Burton should be back on the offensive line. Tennessee had lost Kamal Hadden for the year to an injury. That's very unfortunate. Now you're going to have Danico Slaughter and Gabe Judy Lawley playing the corners. Not a ton of depth behind them guys. Brandon Turnage is a guy who he's been okay at corner in the past. He's kind of played some star this year in a reserve role. Now is he going to move over and get some more at corner? Warren Burrell has been there in the past, but not ideal if you're Tennessee. Those were that was kind of a slot in Kamal Hadden that had really started getting solidified. Now we'll see how Danico Slaughter and Gabe Judy Lawley do. But the deal is, can Kentucky even take advantage of that? They've been so poor with their connection in the pass game, whether it's been Devin Leary that's been off mechanically, missing throws, things of that nature, or it's been wide receivers just off on their route running a little bit, dropping balls that are right there when Leary does put it on the money. They need to find some kind of way to get him in a rhythm early, some easy throws. I don't care if it's side to side, some of the stuff on the perimeter, force Tennessee to tackle in space out there on the perimeter. I think those would be some things that could help Devin Leary kind of ease into this game a little bit. You got to wonder, Kentucky's going to try to pound the rock at Tennessee after Alabama kind of slowly and surely busted away at that Tennessee defensive front, giving Jace McClellan 27 carries in the third Saturday of October rivalry that took place a week ago. Tennessee, like Missouri, like Kentucky against Missouri, was up, had every opportunity to take all the momentum in that game and really put Alabama away, and they couldn't capitalize in the red zone. In fact, Kentucky is a team that is okay in red zone defense, so maybe you see Tennessee get a little bit better, but right now, guys, Tennessee is dead last in the touchdown rate in the red zone offensively, 54.55%. The field gets condensed down there, everything shrinks. You don't have the threat of pushing DBs out of the way with receivers over the top and having stuff coming underneath. Everything's right there, more compact, and it's harder to find windows. Got to be able to run the football down there. We'll see what Kentucky's able to do. Mark Stoops, Brad White prides their team on stopping the run, of course. But last year, this game was a game where Tennessee hit a bunch of explosive plays on Kentucky. You know that Kentucky's going to want to prevent the big play this year. Can Joe Milton play more like he did in the first half of the Alabama game? Or is he going to be like we've seen several times this year on the road, the Florida game on the road, make some bad decisions, put your team in a couple of bad situations, have some accuracy issues? It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see this team. They're both in kind of, back against the wall mode. Neither one can afford another loss here to kind of do some things that they would really like to do this year, of course. So, and Tennessee, man, these receivers, they're that's the group I kind of called out for them, much like the Kentucky team. One reason they haven't had explosive plays is because Joe Milton has put the ball on the money a few times, and there's been some really critical drops that the Tennessee receivers have produced. And it's just a deal where, hey, you've got to make those plays when the plays are there to be made. Especially against a Kentucky team at home that typically plays very fundamentally sound, gap sound defense. I think that Tennessee, yes, they'll be able to run the football at times, but I don't think they'll just gash Tennessee, or I don't think they'll gash the Kentucky Wildcats running the football. So it's going to come some third and medium situations, things like that, where Joe Milton has to be able to accurately deliver the football. Those receivers have to step up and catch it. And then also, I think Joe Milton needs to use his legs as often as possible. He's a big guy. He can run. That is a weapon. And I think he needs to be more apt to say, okay, 1, 2, not there, go. I mean, you just get what you can. I liked in the Alabama game, you even saw him run some option type stuff with him. So I think that could be a big weapon for Tennessee going forward. I picked Tennessee in this one. I think Kentucky is totally capable, if they get any kind of quarterback play out of Devin Leary, of winning this game. However, I don't trust him to do it this year, as the greatest predictor of future performance is past performance, and he has not performed well in the games leading up to this for Kentucky. So need to see that out of Devin Leary. Need to see if Liam Cohen can design some things, like I said, to get him in a rhythm early. Guys, that's going to be a great matchup there. We got a couple others here that we're going to hit. Mississippi State. Listen, Zach Arnett really, I think, has gotten more involved in the play calling duties on defense for Mississippi State. I think Hugh Freeze has gotten more involved in the offensive play calling duties for Auburn. So you're going to see both head coaches kind of chess matching against one another here in this game on the Plains. Auburn 6.5, depending on where you look, point favorite in this one. The over under at 43. Our man Jake Crane, who's on Jake's Takes with us on Friday morning, said, he goes, how do I not take everything I've ever made in my life and put it on the under in this game? He doesn't trust either one of these offenses. I guess that would determine, if Will Rogers healthy enough. I don't think he's going to be able to go. Mike Wright would be the quarterback then for Mississippi State. Woody Marks looked banged up as all get out in the last game, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's out either. If so, then Auburn really has a chance to stymie that Mississippi State offense. Defensively, Auburn's been pretty dang good all year. Eugene Asante has really been a guy who stepped up. They've gotten Keontae Scott back in the last game. Austin Keys returned. So they got a lot of pieces over there defensively that Ron Roberts is doing a really good job with. I think mainly here, if those guys are injured, can Kevin Barbe for Mississippi State find a way to creatively get it into the hands of Tulu Griffin, Justin Robinson, heck, even Creed Whittemore, all these guys that they've got that have been gone largely underutilized. And if you got Mike Wright, then you got to basically turn it into some kind of run first, pass as a change-up type offense for Mississippi State. And then, of course, for Auburn, can these receivers, I don't care if it's Hooks, if it's Fair, if it's Johnson, whoever it is, you got the tight ends, Deal and Fairweather, somebody has to step up and make plays on the perimeter for this Auburn team, because I don't care how good you are at running the football. This isn't, in the 1950s, you have to utilize the forward pass in this game, and Auburn has not been able to do so. Worth a darn, as Deion Sanders would say, not worth a darn. And when it comes down to it, Peyton Thorne at times, he's been better at home than he has on the road. And also at times he's put, particularly at home, he's put the ball right on the money for these receivers. So again, Joe Milton, Devin Leary, Peyton Thorne, they've got to have help from the receivers. You've got to step up and make plays when they're there to be made from the receivers. Then Robbie Ashford, I'd give Robbie Ashford at least, 7-8 carries in this game. Try to see what he can do with his legs. He's very, very dynamic, and I'd also let him take a couple of deep shots and see if they catch him sleeping over there against an aggressive Zach Arnett defense. But I do think Auburn wins this one at home. I'm not so sure about the 6 points because it's a crazy deal. Remember a while back when I think it was Sylvester Croom that was there at Mississippi State, and Tommy Tuberville was over there for Auburn. It was a 3-2 game that Auburn won. So, just crazy stuff there. So excited to watch that game as well. And then also, guys, you have South Carolina who's going to play earlier in the day, a noon game. This line has grown all the way to 17 for Texas A&M. I think that Vegas knows that there's no way that South Carolina can protect Spencer Rattler. Their offensive line is just in shambles. There's no guarantee that Babalady or Henry are going to be able to play in this game. Rashawn Lee is out. Amarheem Brown is out. Xavier Leggett may not play. He could be limited if he does play. It's basically Spencer Rattler versus the world, and as good as Spencer Rattler has been, I just see this Texas A&M talented front, defensive front, being able to get after them. They are loaded with talent up front, a couple of different waves there of immensely talented recruiting classes that have come through. Defense has not been the problem for the most part, particularly up front. Texas A&M leads the SEC in sacks and tackles for a loss. On the defensive side of things, it's been offensively. I do think this is a big opportunity for Max Johnson to show some growth against a defense that should give him plenty of opportunity. Take what they're giving you. You can't go broke making a profit. Hopefully he's had during the bye week the opportunity to work on some fundamental things, some mechanical things, being able to not throw off of his back foot, being able to transition his weight forward, and give guys chance to catch the ball in rhythm. And by the way, against Alabama, Evan Stewart and Nia Smith combined for 7 touches. Against Tennessee, Evan Stewart and Nia Smith combined for 5 touches. Get your best players the football. Jimbo and Bobby. That is what you have to do. Get your best players the football, and it doesn't have to be 15, 20 or more yards down the field. It can be at the line of scrimmage with a now screen. It can be, jet sweep type action. You can line them up in the backfield, throw it to them out of the backfield. You can do all kinds of different stuff. But when you got guys like that, you have to get them the football, and not doing so is malpractice. You would think that Jimbo Fisher, our man Andy Stowe said, hey, he's coaching for that buyout. He's wanting to get that buyout. I don't know. I think Jimbo Fisher's got more competitive integrity than that. I think they definitely want to win over there. But this is a game as a 17-point favorite at home. Kyle Field, if you don't come out and take care of business against this South Carolina team that is literally the walking wounded, it's going to be really, really bad for Jimbo Fisher over there. I don't care how big the buyout is. They got to win this one, and I think they need to win it convincingly. Of course, Ole Miss hosts Vanderbilt. Here's what you guys see out of Vanderbilt. You just want to see them to compete on the road, try to not just give up huge plays in the run game, and give Ken Seals or A.J. Swan, whoever's going to play, I think it'd probably be Ken Seals, give him an opportunity to just try to be efficient and keep Vanderbilt in the ball game. But there's a reason that Ole Miss is a 25.5-point favorite. I think it may have gone down to 24.5 in some places. Over under 61.5, 7:30, 6:30 Central there in Oxford. So it should be an opportunity for Quinshai Judkins and Ulysses Bentley, Jackson Dart, all to have a big day on the ground. Vanderbilt's very, very poor at stopping the run. They also can give up some explosive plays as well. So it ought to be a big day for Lane Kiffin and for Ole Miss there over, as people will be partying in the Grove all day and then coming into Vaught Hemingway Stadium over there at night to watch the Rebels play. Guys, we appreciate you tuning in to SEC Football Game Day to watch us. This is a place where it's all football, all SEC, no little X or any nonsense like that, like College Game Day has on here. Nothing political, nothing like that. It's all football. And if you enjoy that type of SEC coverage, then make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. We got a lot of exciting stuff that's coming your way here this week. In fact, this upcoming week, we've got a lot of stuff that is going to be really exciting that we're going to be announcing. Also, we've got our live reaction show tonight as well. Make sure you tune into that. So thank you so much for tuning in here to Southeastern 14 SEC Football Game Day. We have content that goes out each and every day. Blake Lovell's about to get basketball ramped up. Chris Lee, of course, will be joining him with that and continuing to help me with football. We got Jake Crane that makes appearances on here on Fridays. Brian Edwards has been in the Vegas insider game for quite a while. He's on here with us. So lots of stuff for you to be on here. Like I said, if you want to advertise with us, hit up caroline.smith at southeastern14.com. And then also, guys, CHOMPS. Get your 15% off discount in the description below. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am Blaine Gilmer. We'll catch you guys next time to talk more SEC football right here on Southeastern 14.